This is for Hefe.
People, this is Governor Kay Ivey of Alabama. If you haven't voted today, please do. Go vote. It's your right, and take off your goddamn mask. Hey everyone, it's me, it's Blaine. It's Taking It Down. I'm the editor-in-chief of the storied site, The Alabama Take. Our show here is a podcast produced by The Alabama Take and dedicated to discussions on television, movies, sometimes music, and I'll be damned if we don't sneak a book in from time to time to show those goddamn Democrats what's up. Today, we're going to talk about mainly two shows. We discussed both of them last week. One of them is... I'm going to edit out your goddamn laughing, by the way. We're going to talk about two shows. Same two shows we talked last week, but we just want to unpack a little bit more in them. Those are HBO show Somebody Somewhere and the Disney Plus show The Book of Boba Fett, which is... it's kind of been on our radar its whole season. And if you were with us last week, I began a very short, vague, spoiler-free Euphoria enjoyment section that begins the show, or is pretty early in our Taking It Down show. And you heard them already. Here they are. If you're a regular listener, you know our co-host, Adam Morrow and Donovan Reinwald. They'll say hello to you in that order.
Good to be here. Good to be chided for laughing at you to start the show. That's always a good, strong start. Laughing at my pal. He's being funny.
I was going to say that's probably a good thing.
Great to be here.
Oh, man. Finally.
Hey, old man, take a look at your life.
Am I a lot like you?
Do I have to boot up my Pono?
That went the way of the dinosaur, I'm afraid. Well, I'm not afraid. I was never quite interested, though I get it. But speaking of which, Neil Young is, I guess all of his stuff is off Spotify. I've been off Spotify for a month now, and I'm glad.
Can you explain Joe Rogan to me?
So, yeah, he is a douchebag. He's like the guy at the bar whom you can get along with a little bit, but he just says so much bullshit you don't want to hang out with him ever.
And it ends up with Neil Young taking his records to Tidal or whatever.
And he's totally into MFA, and he wears those kind of shirts, and you just never want to hang out with him. But if you see him, you're like, hey Joe, what's up, man? And then you kind of just totally go to the other side of the bar. That's Joe Rogan.
Okay, makes sense to me.
He's always at the bar. Always at the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy.
There's been a lot of, like, whataboutisms, and both sides are bad thrown around this week by, like, just a multitude of different folks on the political spectrum or on the music culture spectrum. It's been a weird week to kind of try to wrap your head around, because it's not just like a clear-cut black and white thing. Like, there are those that say, well, why should you, if you're getting your medical information from Joe Rogan, that's not Joe Rogan's fault, which is a lot of whataboutism to me that makes excuses for poor behavior. But then there's people who rightly say Neil is, an incredibly wealthy, successful boomer who can do what he wants without consequence, and the rest of the music world kind of has to be beholden to Spotify to keep, because the pie is so small that you can't take out any small slice. I'm of the mind that because Neil is a man of means, it makes a difference when he stands up like this, even if you can't pull your music off of there.
Yeah.
Or your podcast. I mean, people listen to this on there. That's great. But, there's alternatives. Blaine, you led off by saying you've been off Spotify for a month, and my first question was, what led to the move?
Yeah.
What inspired it?
Yeah, well, Apple One had been gaining a lot of traction, and I just kept reading reviews, and they just package everything I use except for, like, the Apple Arcade, playing games on your phone. I don't really do that, but, my daughter might in, like, 4 or 5 years or something, but it just packaged everything, and the idea of even having Apple News, because it kind of sort of allows you to subscribe to magazines online, and I use my iPad a lot to read online stuff. I don't use it for, like, buying books or anything. Anyway, all that said, Apple One just sounded attractive to me, and I started doing the math, and I was like, well, it's really probably going to be a cheaper route than subscribing to Apple TV Plus and Spotify and and we needed a little bit more storage in our iCloud for this and that. And I think maybe my wife was using Google Drive for that, and it was getting a little bulky. And we just switched everything to Apple Plus. And the bonus of that was not only the price, but I found that Apple Music pays a little better to their artists, and that's nice. Mm-hmm. I found that they have a lossless hi-fi button. It probably uses up a good bit of data, but I usually am connected to an internet source, and I found it to sound quite a bit better than Spotify. But Adam, you even have probably a step or two above that you've experimented with.
This is as of this weekend. I've been messing with the I don't even know how to pronounce this, and I asked, and I still don't know. Qobuz.
It's Cuomo.
Cuomo.
It's
guy
not.
Rivers. I have heard that they're based in Paris. I don't know. All the details there, but it's Qobuz.
Mm-hmm.
Not a French word, so I'm not sure if Paris excuses the name, but it is like an audiophile's dream streaming service. You can have your settings for when you're connected to Wi-Fi. You can have your mobile settings, and it goes from all the way just beneath CD quality through super hi-fi stuff if the artist has released the records in that fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it can talk to your, this is very dorky, it can talk to your computer, the hardware in your computer, to figure out the sample rate that it's being played at and like play nice with that. So it is Super Dork approved. There is a 1 month free trial, and I am honestly I laid on my couch with just earbuds in and listened for like 2 hours yesterday, and it just sounds so good.
2 questions. Do they have every artist, like every in quotation marks? Is there anyone not on there?
I have not run into that yet, and there are a few. There's one particular website that's getting a lot of traction on Twitter right now that allows you to take all your Spotify playlists and select the service that you're going to use and send all your playlist over. Because I've been a Spotify user I got it the day it was available in the U.S. So that's like 11 years, 12 years, something like that. So there's a backlog of, there's even like Donovan and I had a radio show. So like the last few years of our college radio show, or like maybe the last half year, I still had the playlists that were the show. So I'd hate to lose that.
If that's your hang up, if you're a listener, then there are apps and there are websites. Some of them cost money, and some of them are free, and then some of them have a free version versus a $5 version that will take your playlist and transfer them to whatever. I did that for Apple Music when I decided to make the switch, and I used like a $5 app. It's $5 a month, but I used it 2 days and then canceled the subscription immediately. But it was worth the $5 to get all of my playlists, and it did it perfectly. There were like a couple of songs it didn't recognize I had to do manually, but it was pretty good.
I think there's a few UI issues. It's not as smooth as Spotify. Spotify is a tech company. People who give money, invest in Spotify, are investing in a tech company. They're not in the business of music, really, or creativity, which makes their app very smooth at this. Spotify used to be a pretty buggy app in the olden times, and now it's the best of the best. But so this is a little more rudimentary, I guess, than that. But I have found everything to be on there. But just weird things like putting an ampersand instead of the word "and" in a band's name gets different results. Yeah. They haven't quite. Just like little hang-ups like that they've slowed the playlist making down.
I gotcha.
For a few folks I know.
So tell me about the interface. That's kind of what you're hinting at anyway.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
It's a different. I haven't encountered any issues with it. It looks good. There's no social component that I've found so far. Yeah. I don't know if that's an attraction or a negative for people. There are times when it's both for me. I enjoy seeing what folks are listening to, but sometimes I know you can set Spotify on private, but the thought of being observed is not always. It's just kind of weird. I don't know.
There is a component of that on Apple Music, and there's also It's pretty sleek. If you decide to switch to one of these, I can vouch for Apple Music. It's fine. It's very much like Spotify. Actually, it's a little easier on the eyes for me because a lot of Spotify stuff leaned heavy into the dark, and this is a little bit more light.
It did.
All right. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I don't know that I've got a firm opinion other than I'm not crazy about how Spotify pays its artists, and I've never been crazy about Joe Rogan, so I'm definitely in the Neil Young camp. But people, I think, have an okay argument, though Neil has addressed this, to say that he is battling free speech in a way. And that's an interesting, I think, topic, and it has layers of nuance that not even I can wrap my head around.
It's kind of like when people get banned from Twitter. It's like that's not a violation of free speech because you are entering into an agreement with a private company to use their services. And if they deem what you do to be unacceptable, it's their right to stop you from using their program, right?
So what Spotify needs to do is come along and say you can't say false things about, COVID or something like that? They need to put that in writing?
In their defense, and this is... not a lot of musicians have been defending Spotify ever, but especially not in the last few days. But, they did come out and point out that they had removed just tons and tons of podcasts with COVID misinformation. So they have done something in that regard. But I don't know I don't know what Neil Young's brain is doing at all times, but there is also a component of saying, like, if this is a company that wants to invest this ungodly amount of money into Joe Rogan, that's their prerogative. I just don't want to be affiliated with that company.
Yeah, that's exactly
those are two different things. Like, he's not saying that it's wrong. He is saying it's wrong for him. He's not saying it's like no one should do that. It's just like, if you were going to do this, I don't want to be included.
Yeah, kudos to him.
Yeah, this is not government censorship. This is Neil Young kind of using his free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like the way you guys have put it. That's much less simple and much more interesting.
Everybody wants everything to be like cancel culture, on both sides of the given issue, which allows no room for nuance. Like, I mean, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole on this, but I was texting with musician friends over the weekend and just saying, I think music fans want an equitable market for the bands that they like. They want them to make a decent living.
Yeah.
And I think people would be shocked at how hard, even bands that we all would recognize their names, they do, pretty good touring. They have like the middle font at a festival, like how hard it still is to pay all the bills for those kind of bands.
No, it is.
Nobody's making a buckets of money or anything, but like how much of understanding a complex economy of this niche of a profession is on the consumer. That's a lot to ask of people.
My thing now is cancel culture. So that's where I'm now. For the sake of time, let me sneak in my Euphoria bit this week. For those that don't know or are new to our show, each week I'm going to do, for the second season of Euphoria, I'm going to do like a little vague, no spoiler thought. And our guy Adam, who's here, co-host, is catching up on the show. I think you just wrapped season 1 at home, right?
I'll be caught up very soon. I'll be ready to partake in your veiled praise, I suppose. I was gonna say critique, but they've all been praises.
For them, I think that's probably what I'll pick. First off, I can't explain how floored. I can't put to words how floored I was. The detail of the show when the exact copy of the Beckett's I had as a kid with David Robinson on the cover appeared in this episode. Are you guys familiar with Beckett's, the little magazine / card valuing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so they had that on a table, and it floored me. I love the use of in excess in this week's, and I'll continue in a couple more broad thematic statements. So even when this show does more character developed type TV and less advancing plot lines, I'm still quite intrigued by how it likes to flip some of the obvious. There's a character this season who's probably known for a very calm, low-key typecast, but she's doing a dangerous figure and I'm all for it. I hope she's more involved with this season. I'm excited to see her on screen. I like it. I think it's kind of it is a little funny, though. Euphoria is not known for its LOLs, and the show seems big maybe here, but I'll say that it's gravitating toward an edge that it might have to be really skillful in navigating. But with that said, I didn't know exactly how much I loved the season finale or the whole season 1 until I watched the finale. So there's my vague stuff for this week's, and I'm talking about episode 3 of the second season. And what do you
tell me this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just briefly, the in between episodes, Rue and Jules. Like the hour-long specials. I need to watch those before I move on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about those. Yeah.
Those are must-watch in between the 2 seasons, right?
They're good. I don't know that I really don't think they're mandatory, but especially Rue's episode, it's just really, really good. It's really good.
Okay.
Both of them had a very feel to them, like a play. A lot of talk.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the Rue episode's top notch of what to do when you're in COVID restrictions, I guess. But well, speaking of HBO, let's go back to the show with Bridget Everett as the star. It's called Somebody Somewhere. We commented on how we wanted to begin our conversation last week with more episodes under our belt. Now we've got the second episode under our belt. So how are we feeling about this show?
I feel like this show is becoming more so itself. Basically everything we picked up on last week, it's kind of expanded on. One of the things you mentioned, Blaine, was how it kind of drops you in to storylines and just expects you to pick up on that. I felt like there was more of that this week, especially with the former partner who we're supposed to, I think, assume is the partner.
Kim,
partner of her sister that's passed away. And to Adam's point which is now the lens by which I view this show, I just feel like Adam summed it up really well last week, but just that tension between wanting to belong in maybe that kind of smaller town environment, wanting to belong with your sister, and we see the kind of store that the sister runs, and wanting to still be a part of the family, and also not fitting in and not belonging, and just there's a lot of tension there. I thought that the show did a really good job of kind of doing this in one little scene right at the beginning when they're at brunch and what is his name? Fred Rococo's paying, and the waiter says, "Thank you, sir, ma'am, sir." Fred got it right the first time, and then tips him a lot, and it felt like that scene kind of perfectly encapsulated the we're part of even though we're outside this world, we're still a part of it. And even though we're a part of this world, we're still outside of it.
Yeah.
And they do a really gentle job of, when she's going to her sister's store, it's like she's clearly not on the same wavelength, but she's not on a high horse about it. Like, she's got things more figured out, I think. Maybe just that she is sensitive to a different wavelength or reality than the folks around her, and it's not more or less valid. It just is. That's such a tricky thing to do, and I'm not sure that if it was articulated that it would be as powerful to watch, especially like we said last week, as people who do, well, 2 out of 3 live in the South and are clearly kind of a little bit outsiders as well.
Yeah, this episode got into the premise that it's about being middle-aged and maybe looking at life as a failure. And despite that description, it does so, like Adam said, I'll use the adjective gently, or the adverb there. It does it gently. I kind of want the show to wallow in that disappointment a little. Let's bring on the depression of middle age. But at the same time, what it does present is pretty good. One thing I do adore is how a lot of these people in reality, in our reality, they don't have the same self-awareness to understand that they're unhappy with life. There's a bit toward the end of the second episode where Sam's a bit jealous of Joel for knowing exactly what it'll take to make him happy. But in real life, I don't think those people are even like Sam. She realizes, at least, I am unhappy, and here are a couple of reasons why. She just doesn't know what it'll take to make her happy. I think in reality there are people that I know that are just like this, except they're a step back from that, and they don't even know that they're unhappy. Does that make sense? That's a little...
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think that maybe their status as kind of outsiders makes them think harder about these topics? Because they can't really just go with the flow of life and be kind of numbed to reality.
For sure. And it's...
I definitely got that with Joel, especially one of the things he says in his his vision board or whatever it is community, right? Like, he knows what makes him happy. And we've already seen the importance of community in the first episode, the importance of community to him. And I don't think that he would have that awareness without his outsider status.
I can't say that this show's doing grief perfectly. And oddly enough, I'm watching Afterlife on Netflix with Ricky Gervais, which is 100% centered on that topic. But Sam sleeping on the couch in that house is such a specific and appropriately sad touch of grief. Mm-hmm. And it does things like that, I think, pretty well.
I think that not doing grief perfectly is kind of perfect for grief, just because everyone does it in their own way.
That's true. So here's a story. My 4-year-old daughter, I was watching this late last night, and it was going to be the last thing I watched before I went to bed. My 4-year-old daughter happens to wake up, and she comes in and sits in a chair with me, and I'm thinking, well, this is not going to be anything crazy that she couldn't watch. And so we watched the last 10 minutes together, and her comment after it was up, she was into it. It was weird. She watched it. She said, I think I want to watch it again. And I said, no, it's time for bed. And when it was over, she said, what were they talking about that they didn't like? In response to Sam and Joel's discussing how life at 40 is starting to unravel into disappointment. And I said, well, they're just generally unhappy. And what a profound little question that ended up being. What is it that they don't like?
Yeah, good question.
I bet some critiques of the show, I haven't sought any out, but that it may be a bit mopey. I can see that a little, but it's also nicely crafted. So I don't know if there's going to be a ton of critiques on that.
Yeah, I've seen more stuff saying that it's more hopeful and kind of centering on that Midwestern nice. Salon ran something comparing it to Ted Lasso a little
Interesting. Bit. Sort of the Americanized.
Yeah, just with that sort of that same vein of like Midwest nice, sweetness, hopefulness.
Well, there was a moment in this episode, and I ended up going back and watching that last 10 minutes again because I was way too focused on figuring out if anything was going to offend my daughter or if I was going to turn it off. It is an HBO show, but nothing like that happened. But there was a moment where Sam says to Joel at the very end, she says, I don't think I'm good at anything, Joel. And I thought, oh, okay. I can attach my wagon to this horse for the entire ride.
That's good. I mean, the first episode left you wondering. There's a bad version of this where she is reinvigorated as a singer and has found new purpose. You know what I mean? And that it's obviously not going to be that kind of. You knew before that happened that it would never be that kind of show. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I thought even the conflict between friends but her determination to get some resolution kind of ties into what Donovan was saying, that she realizes she needs somebody that she can say that quote, Blaine, can say that to.
Yeah.
I read that the creators said that they wanted there to not be any epiphanies for Sam, because coming back to life doesn't happen in epiphanies. Coming back to life happens in kind of slow steps.
It's good.
And I really see that throughout the second episode. Just little moments are the big moments.
I got two more comments. One is it's going to be a pitiful thing, I think, with her mom being a closeted alcoholic.
The scene with her dad when she realizes that he's been stuck, in the little silo or whatever it was. That was rough. And his readiness to stay in there and hope that somebody would happen by instead of involve the mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yet they all both of them are clearly the outsiders in different ways, but still love the family.
The second thing is...
There's something brewing with the mom, yeah.
Yeah. The second thing is another outsider who is her brother-in-law. I think his name's Rick. That has not been revealed, or they haven't gone in that direction yet. They of course they will, but he was at the choir practice, or tried to come in, saw his sister-in-law Sam left. What's happening there? And another outsider kind of thing, but we're going to find out exactly what kind
Chekhov's gay gun, if you will.
Maybe so, but he might not be. He might not be.
Chekhov's lonely gun.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yep. Let's take a break, and we're going to do Boba Fett catching up, okay? On the other side. Hey, are you new to the show? Thanks for listening, and thanks for any returning friends. So, returning pals know that we take a break to refresh ourselves here and give you some announcements related to our home site, thealabamatape.com. If you've ever been to our home site, you know, return again. And you should go back, because this week, recent writer has joined us, our ensemble. Laura will be covering probably a lot of books, but maybe even some other things whenever she takes the notion. Her recent piece about having book-related resolutions is on the site now. If you've never subscribed to our podcast, there are 2 of them. It's this one, Taking It Down, and there's also This Song Sucks. You should subscribe, catch up on them if you've never heard them. Don't forget that thealabamatape.com and all of its shows and podcasts have merch you can see and buy by visiting on thealabamatape.com and clicking on Shop. Anything you buy helps the site exist. If you want to support us but aren't interested in some of that snazzy menswear, you can just click on Donate and help the site continue to stay strong in those ways. That should catch you up. Let's go back into Taking It Down. So I didn't have the intent really to cover the Book of Boba Fett weekly, but I also feel like I've had something to say every week, so that's why we've been putting it in the show. Let's just, spoiler warning for the latest episode of the Book of Boba Fett. I think it's chapter 5. Am I right about that?
I think you're right.
Okay, there it is. No more. If you haven't watched, just come back to us. It's an episode of Boba Fett, which has no Boba Fett. So
did Jon Favreau realize the show that people actually want to watch?
Yes, that's what happened.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, damn it, I've been making the wrong show this whole time.
Took me 5 episodes of writing, and now here I am. I felt like this episode was kind of cool, and because you're never going to get this sort of stuff in a movie. Lots of just fun coloring in the rest of the picture. It's in the service of fans, sort of, but in a good way. You know, they're building the ship, and you never get to see them put a piece of metal on a ship and then, you know, screw it in and all that in a Star Wars movie.
Did you like the shipbuilding sequence?
That's the appropriate use of droids. We complained about them last week. Now this is how you can have fun droids for the kids in the toy aisle, yet still move the story forward. Donovan, you didn't like the shipbuilding?
No, the shipbuilding was fine. Although it was definitely a little fan servicey with the ship being right out of episode 1. But it's like 12 minutes of this episode.
No, it was a lot.
It was a long.
But they made room for it. It was a 52-minute episode, so
it could have been worse.
But and Amy Sedaris is the kind of, if they want to inject humor into this show, that's the kind you need. You need Amy Sedaris saying somewhat goofy things, not trying to have a rabbit droid run around and try to be cutesy. You know, put in your Amy Sedaris type people, and they'll carry your humor for you.
Yeah.
I thought it worked well. It also gave me the brutality that I've been wanting. You know, that first scene with Mando trying to figure out the sword.
People getting sliced in half, that kind of thing.
Fucking do that, man, because it's got to happen. He's swinging a sword around, you know, and it's such a nice touch to have him cut himself on his own, or burn himself on his own sword.
I love just the understanding that he's only so good because he gets shot all the time and kind of beat up often, but the armor is just so good, you know? Like, he has literal plot armor that's not... He can lose. It just doesn't matter. But him swinging that sword and not... You find out later he hasn't figured out how to use it is just like the classic, you know... One person dies on the street after a knife fight, and the second guy dies in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Like, there are no winners. That's any of us if we're trying to wield a sword.
If we're trying to swing the dark saber around.
I got trivia for you guys. Useless trivia here. the younger X-Wing pilot who flew in, to stop Mando for, I don't know, speeding or whatever, he was Mark Hamill's stand-in for the season finale of Mando. He was the person they put the face on top of. Yeah, give him something.
I feel like I have a lot of questions about the logistics of the New Republic.
Me too.
This is as I was watching this, I thought Donovan has opinions about how air traffic control works around Tatooine, and should this guy just be able? Should Mando be able just to go up in this ship and like buzz a commercial? If you soup up a prop plane, you can't just like go willy-nilly around the commercial flights or whatever. So why is he allowed to do this?
It's funny you said that, because as he was flying out over Mos Eisley, I out loud said, "Hope he cleared his flight plan."
Yeah. Exactly.
Leave it to Donovan.
I know you.
And that was just the beginning of it. And then he was buzzing this ship too. It was too close, and that's dangerous. But then,
it was dangerous.
These space cops are just here. If we're supposed to believe that Tatooine is some like it was so 30 plus years ago, it was so outside of the realm of the New Republic that like slavery still existed there, right? Like it's this dirty backwater planet that nobody knows about, and now it's like the crown jewel of the New Republic, it seems, because there's just like instant police response.
But doesn't that make sense with Luke Skywalker having been raised there?
No, there's nothing else.
He probably told someone, "Geez, we need to go police this Tatooine place. I grew up there, and it's rough."
It's rough.
I think they're letting the spice trade go on, or whatever's happening to keep Tatooine on the map. They just want to have, if you're gonna run drugs, keep the speed limit in mind, that kind of thing.
That's been rule number one.
Do you think that the spice trade is this like a New Republic CIA operation?
Yes.
If they would do something like that, it would be awesome.
The X-Wings being used by cops was kind of disappointing. Like such an iconic ship. And you're kind of like enjoying the Naboo plane again, or whatever, the fighter. And then you see an X-Wing and they're just being, cops who don't want to fill out paperwork.
Well, they're no longer the rebels anymore. They won.
I know. They can't give them another ship to do that.
Good point.
It is true. Well, like Adam makes a really good point. Why the X-Wing is a starfighter. Police officers don't buzz you in like an F-15 because they don't need to.
They would if they could. Let's establish that. This may be taking
absolutely
the militarization of the police to the extreme.
Give those budgets another year or two.
Police reform in the Star Wars universe clearly needs to happen quickly.
Where's their Colin Kaepernick?
But it doesn't make any sense that they're using this starfighter as a police interceptor. Makes no sense. No sense. There's got to be another ship out there. But
I knew this would get him revved up.
Where's Mando gonna put his bounties in this new?
Now that is a fair question.
It's a logistical nightmare.
He does have
he lives in that ship, basically.
Yeah, he's got no room other than just flying around. That's a great point.
He's got one little spare astromech spot, which is just big enough for Baby Yoda.
Jesus.
And
Let's go there. I'm so upset that we're going back to Grogu. There are so many better stories out there to tell for Season 3, because this is Season 2.5 of The Mandalorian, obviously. But they're going to go back for him reconnecting with Grogu. And they got him having his little... Oh, they totally made him a little 90s era rap chain, didn't they? That's what they made for him.
It's a little suit of chain.
I know, well... Wouldn't it be so much better if it was like the Georgia Bulldogs turnover chain?
Absolutely.
Okay. This was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. She did an excellent job. She's got skills, much like her dad. It's no wonder. Surely they'll toss her a movie once they get back into trying to make some movies. Or maybe they won't try to do that again. She should get her own spin-off movie or something. She did it very well.
This was a great episode.
It really was. Maybe they could have shaved a minute or two off of the ship making. Is it too coincidental that the ship was Anakin's, probably?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we had to go to Beggar's Canyon.
Again. Well, now that does make a little sense, doesn't it? You're on Tatooine. That's a popular place. Like when you go to New York, people go to Times Square, right?
When you go to Tatooine, you go to Beggar's Canyon.
Yeah.
Shoot womp rats.
Exactly.
You even saw one. It was great.
Teenagers are there making out. That's where you go.
How much did we love when he came back and he said that the ship was Wizard?
I didn't catch the reference. I had to read that was a reference because it's
Wizard, Annie.
I forgot, right?
Yeah. You forgot. You blocked it out.
Deservedly so. Final thoughts on the most recent episode of Boba Fett? Because next week we're getting Boba Fett, whether you like it or not.
Do we have to see Boba Fett again?
You know, they could have done this in like a really tidy. This could have been the third episode of like a really strong, 5-episode run.
Mm-hmm.
If you just had Boba doing his thing, I still love the Tusken Raider episode. You could have that.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the establishment of whatever political stuff is happening on Tatooine that I care so little about. You could put the Vespa gang into a cannon and shoot them into the sun.
Please do.
And then you landed this episode.
Tatooine has 2 suns.
People would be like, "This is great. Just pick one, or why pick? Just split the gang up."
You know, this season, Adam makes a good point. It's like an album that is being held back by its sequencing.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. You trim a few songs off that, and it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
For the sake of time, we're short. We're a short episode this week, but technical difficulties behind the scenes. Email us, we'll tell you about it. That's going to be it for this week's episode. We hope you had as much fun listening as we do making these. We really enjoy ourselves. I'll say this really quick, guys. I'll let you jump into. I am all for a 10-episode series of what the hell happened after they blew up that final Death Star. Like, what do you do? How do you pick up the pieces? What government do you install?
That's the kind of minutia that it would be fun.
Yes.
Get David Simon show running that.
Yes.
Yeah.
How great would that be?
Now, I've wondered this since I was 6, before I really knew what a government was.
Yeah.
I always thought, well, what happened after that? You won. Anyway, that's it for this episode. We'll be back with you next Tuesday morning to talk dorky stuff, and I don't know. We might put Somebody Somewhere to the side for a little bit, and we will definitely go back to Euphoria, our brief segment there. What else? I don't know. What are you guys going to watch? Email us, message us. We're on all social media. Follow us. Talk to everybody then.